Hey there, kids. We're going to continue today with the novel that we're reading, the best school year ever. We started it last week. We got through the first chapter. So, what did we learn in the first chapter? Well, we didn't learn much. We just met a lot of people. We met Charlie, little brother, the entire Herdman family. Ralph, Imogene, Leroy, Claude, Ollie, Gladys, and their mom and dad. Met some classmates, Boomer, Alice, Wendelkin, and Albert Pelfrey, and some friends, Luella McCluskey and Luella's baby, Howard. Remember Howard went missing? We also met Miss Kemp, who is the teacher, and she rattled everybody's cage on the first day of school by assigning that the students would have to be able to say something good about somebody in their class. So the first chapter pretty much just set up the first day. We got to meet these colorful characters. And the one thing that I found interesting about the first chapter is we don't know who's telling the story. Now, there's a lot of different ways and different voices that an author can use. And in this particular book, we see the role of narrator. Someone is telling us the story. We know that it's Charlie's bigger, older, younger. We don't know for sure. Well, maybe we do. Let me just double check on that. Somewhere in here, there is a notation. It says, my little brother Charlie. So, it's Charlie's older brother or sister. We don't know who this person is yet. We don't have a name for that character. But they are narrating the story. That means they're telling us the story. So we're going to pick it up on chapter 2 here. And I think this is going to be a pretty funny book. All right, let's go. A lot of people, like Alice Wendelkin's mother, thought the Herdmans ought to be in jail. Kids or not. But I knew that wouldn't happen. Our jail is just 2 cells in the basement of the town hall, and the Herdmans aren't allowed in the town hall anymore since Gladys and Ollie put all the frogs in the drinking fountain there. They were little tiny frogs, and Miss Farley, the town clerk, drank 2 or 3 of them off the top of the bubbler by mistake. She didn't have her glasses on, she said, and didn't see them till somebody hollered, Evelyn, stop, you're drinking frogs. Miss Farley was hysterical. She said she could feel them jerking and jumping all up and down in her windpipe. But even so, she chased Gladys and Ollie all around the block, and she said if she ever caught any Herdmans inside the town hall again, she would put on roller skates and run them out of town so fast that their heels would smoke. Of course, they didn't care. What did she eat our frogs for anyway, Gladys said. It's not our fault she ate our frogs. She'll get warts in her stomach where she can't scratch them. Warts don't itch, Alice Wendell told her. These will, Gladys said. We caught the frogs in a patch of poison ivy. The town hall wasn't the only place in town where the Herdmans weren't allowed in to get a drink of water or go to the bathroom or call their mother or anything. They also weren't allowed in the drugstore or the movie theater or the A&P or the tasty lunch diner. They used to be allowed in the post office, but that didn't last. Somebody got a hold of all their school pictures and put them up right next to the wanted posters, and it seemed so natural for them to be there that nobody noticed till Ollie Herdman went up and asked the postmaster, Mr. Blair, how much money he could get for his brother Claude. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Blair said. Some of those people are worth $500, Ollie said. How much can I get for Claude? So Mr. Blair went to see what he was talking about, and sure enough, there were the Herdmans, right up there with the bank robbers and the mad bombers and all. Mr. Blair had a fit. How did these pictures get up here? He said. Did you put these pictures up here? Ollie said, no, it was a big surprise to him. Well, it's a big surprise to me too, Mr. Blair said. But I can tell you that the FBI is not going to pay you anything for Claude, or any of the rest of you either. How did you happen to pick on Claude? Because he's the one I've got, Ollie said. Mr. Blair said later that he didn't like the sound of that. I figured he probably had Claude tied to a tree somewhere. So he mentioned it to the policeman on the corner, and the policeman said he'd better go investigate because with Herdmans, you never could tell. He didn't have to go far. There was a big crowd of people and a lot of commotion halfway down the block, and sure enough, Ollie had shut Claude up in the men's room of the Sunoco station. When the policeman got there, Claude was banging on the door and hollering for someone to let him out. And there was a whole big family from South Dakota wanting to get in. The mother said they had driven almost 150 miles looking for a Sunoco station because they were the cleanest. But what good was clean if you couldn't get in? I gave the key to one of those Herdmans, the manager said, and he went off with it. I should have had my head examined. But you don't need a key to get out, the policeman said. Why don't Claude just open the door? I can't, Claude yelled. The door's stuck. Ollie claimed later they didn't have anything to do with that. And he hadn't even planned to shut Claude up in the men's room or anywhere else. But when the door jammed shut, it went off to get help. And that was when he saw the pictures in the post office. You were going to get help at the post office, the manager said. I was going to get my sister Imogene, and she was at the post office. No, Ollie said, she wasn't there. That was typical Herdman. There was a lie in it somewhere, but you couldn't put your finger on where. Of course, all that was later. In the meantime, Mr. Blair and the Sunoco station manager had to get the fire department to break in the door and get Claude out. By that time, the South Dakota people had left, and a lot of other people had wanted gas, got tired of waiting, and went somewhere else. And in all the excitement, somebody walked off with the 2 cans of motor oil and a wrench. Herdmans, probably, but nobody could prove it. Just like nobody could prove that Ollie really meant to hand Claude over to the FBI for money. So when the Herdmans weren't allowed in the post office or the Sunoco station, and they got thrown out of the new laundromat the very day it opened, they planned to wash their cat in one of the machines, but they didn't know if it would cost money, so they just dropped him in and went off to locate some quarters. Of course, the cat didn't like it in the washing machine, and it made so much noise, hissing and spitting and scratching, that the manager, Mr. Cleveland, went to see what was wrong. I thought it was a short circuit, he said, or a loose connection, something electrical. That's the kind of noise it was. People said it looked electrical, all right. When he opened the lid, the cat shot out with its tail and its ears and all its hair standing straight up. It skittered around all over the top of the machines and clawed through everybody's laundry basket and knocked over boxes of soap and bottles of bleach and a big basket of flour that said, "Good luck to the laundromat." Finally, someone opened the door, and the last they saw of the cat, it was roaring down the street, all tangled up in a tablecloth. Of course, the laundromat was a mess, and all the customers were mad and couldn't find their clothes and wanted their money back for the stuff the cat had spilled. Pretty soon, people began to sneeze from all the cat hair and soap powder in the air, and one lady broke out in big red blotches all over because she was allergic to cats. Mr. Cleveland sent everyone outdoors until things settled down. But things didn't settle down. Santoro's pizza parlor was across the street, and when Mr. Santoro saw all these people coming out of the laundromat sneezing and coughing and choking, he yelled, "What's the matter? Is it a fire?" Somebody yelled back, "No, cat hair." But Mr. Santoro thought they said bad air. He figured there was something wrong with the new plumbing connections, maybe a gas leak, and he ran to the top of the street to warn people away in case of an explosion. Some of the people he warned away were Herdmans, Imogene and Ralph and Leroy, on their way back with 50 cents for the washing machine. "You children get away from here," he said. "The laundromat may explode." I guess they were pretty surprised. They probably figured the cat did it, but they didn't know how. They also probably figured that the cat was smart enough to blow up the laundromat. It was smart enough to get away. So they just left. Mr. Santoro called the fire department too, and they came right away. But of course there wasn't any fire and there wasn't any gas leak. And by the time there wasn't any cat and there weren't any Herdmans either, just a lot of angry customers and a reporter from the newspaper who went around interviewing everybody. Most of the people didn't even know what had happened because it happened so fast. So the newspaper story was pretty mysterious. "Laundromat opened, marred by unusual disturbance," it said. "Firemen respond to anonymous alarm. Customers describe wild animal." My father said at least they got that part right. Mr. Cleveland had to clean up the mess and replace everybody's stuff and pay for the blotched up lady to get an allergy shot. So he was pretty mad. Mr. Santoro was mad because they called him anonymous. And of course the firemen were mad because they knew the Herdmans did it, whatever it was. In the meantime, the Herdmans were home, waiting for the cat to show up. The cat, crazier than usual because it was all wrapped up in a tablecloth, was tearing all over town, yowling and spitting and scratching at anything that got in its way. It ran into the barber shop and streaked up one side of the chair where Mr. Perry was shaving someone. All of a sudden, Mr. Perry said there was a cat. So I lathered the cat by mistake, missed my customer, and lathered the cat. Then the cat ran through the lobby of the movie theater and picked up some popcorn there, and by the time you couldn't tell what it was or what it had ever been. It finally clawed its way up a tree in front of the library, and the librarian, Miss Grabner, called the fire department to come get it down. "I think it's a cat," she said, "and it looks like it's been through a war." "No," the fire chief said, "it's been through a washing machine, and as far as I'm concerned, it can stay up in that tree till the middle of next year." Of course, Miss Grabner was mad about that. The only people who weren't mad were the Herdmans, because when the cat finally got home, it was all clean and fluffy from the shaving lather, and that's what they wanted in the first place. Well, that's the end of chapter 2. I'll tell you, this Herdman family, what a bunch of characters, huh? We'll see what happens in chapter 3 now that their nice clean cat made its way out of the tree and back home. Well, that's our storybook for today. I'll remind you all to stay safe, take care of yourselves, stay out of trouble. I hope you're enjoying this funny little story. I'll bet it gets funnier as we go along. We'll see you tomorrow.